The Nigerian Islamist sect known as Boko Haram has killed at least 935 people since it launched its uprisings in year 2009. This figure includes more than 250 in the first few weeks of this year alone. These are all according to Human Rights Watch. Boko Haram, which actually means Western education is sinful in the Hausa language spoken in northern Nigeria, is loosely modelled on Afghanistan's Taliban. It's claimed responsibility for the bombing of churches, police stations, military facilities, banks and beer parlours in the mainly Muslim north of Nigeria. Let's talk about security and stability in Nigeria, and we're joined by a familiar face on the programme. It's Opeyemi Agbaje, whom I haven't seen in 2012. Many compliments of the new year, and nice to have you. Opeyemi is the CEO of Resource and Trust. Now, I think let's begin from the beginning. Opeyemi, Boko Haram rising up in Nigeria in 2009. What spurred that on?
Well, when Boko Haram started, I always like to distinguish between Boko Haram of today and the one that started in 2009. That one was a local, rural activity or remote activity in Borno State. But I think the transition began when Boko Haram lost the patronage of the governor of Borno State, the then governor of Borno State. And since then, it has come under attack from the Nigerian state, and it also appears to have been transformed in terms of logistics, in terms of funding, in terms of the scope of its operations, and even its motives into a more typical terrorist organization.
Ideologically, what do they stand for? I mean, the name literally means Western education is sinful, but they're not targeting sort of educational posts. It's a general reign of terror across society. So what is it exactly that they stand for?
I would divide its targets into two broad categories: churches and beer parlors and things that signify an abhorrence to Islam, and then the Nigerian state. Essentially, we have to face the fact that Boko Haram is a jihadist organization. It has effectively seeks to launch a jihad against the Nigerian state. It would like to have an Islamic state based on Sharia, at least in the northern parts of Nigeria. And that's essentially what they have said themselves. The name Boko Haram was a nickname given to the group by observers of their activities. Right. So it's not their self-assigned name. Their purpose is broader. It signifies a desire for a purer form of Islam of some sort, as they interpret, and a jihad of some sort.
When I was in Nigeria, obviously, there was this overhang and this palpable sense of insecurity because they'd struck at the heart and the seat of power with the attacks on Eagle Square. And there is just a sense that the government in Nigeria doesn't have a grip on Boko Haram. This is a two-part question. Why does the government, why can't the government deal with them?
Well, I think for some strange reason, the federal government, and I would say the president himself, feels, at least we observe some reluctance to take on Boko Haram, perhaps due to some inclination not to alienate the government from the Muslims in the northern part of Nigeria. Now, that's ironical because everyone says Boko Haram does not represent Islam or does not represent us Muslims. So it's curious. If that is so, it's curious why the government is so scared, I would say, of confronting this agency. And the very recent case in which the Inspector General of Police and the Commissioner of Police appear to have been implicated in essentially setting free the guy who led the bombing of the church on Christmas Day. Now, you find that difficult to reconcile with the other things that are coming out. So it does seem that there's some underlying considerations that restrain the Nigerian government from a full-front attack on Boko Haram.
How authentically Nigerian is Boko Haram? You spoke of the patronage of the governor of Borno State. I've heard rumors that actually a lot of Boko Haram supporters are located in Chad, that actually this is a Chadian organization.
That's the point I'm attempting to allude to. The truth is that there are now enough reasons to believe that Boko Haram enjoys support beyond the fringes of Nigerian society. The president himself has said that Boko Haram has infiltrated the government, that they are in the judiciary, they are in the police, they are in the security agencies. I think that an organization that could organize a bombing attack on the headquarters of the police, on the United Nations headquarters in Nigeria, on the police headquarters in Kano, that has developed the ability to make improvised explosive devices, to launch audacious attacks, that seems to have enough funding to strike practically anywhere in northern Nigeria. I think that organization probably enjoys more institutional support, at least in northern Nigeria, than we are willing to admit.
But I'm asking about support outside of Nigeria.
The South.
Outside Nigeria.
Hello?
Opeyemi, does Boko Haram have support outside of Nigeria from countries in neighboring states?
Oh, outside. Oh, okay. There's no doubt about it that the border states, Niger, many Nigerians have been implicated in Boko Haram bombings, Chadians, probably Somalians and other North Africans. The truth is that it also seems clear that Boko Haram may have established links with global terrorism, with Al-Qaeda in the Middle East, in the Sahelian region, with the global Al-Qaeda. Remember, this group started off naming itself Taliban.
If that is plausible, then it's going to make it even more difficult for the government to rein in Boko Haram, because their tentacles then extend beyond the boundaries of Nigeria. So, feasibly, what can Nigerian authorities do? Do they now need the help of the African Union? Do they now need to call on support from other multilateral bodies, the United Nations? We seem to be having some technical problems there in Nigeria with what was quite a comprehensive analysis on Boko Haram from Opeyemi Agbaje in our studios in Lagos, Nigeria. Now let's take a look at how the markets have performed across the African continent. A slower day for the JSE today, coming down 207 points at 33,940. I know that in early day trade, everybody was saying that a strengthening of the rand is what's buoyed the bourse. Also, good performance by resources companies, but other big players on the markets like MTN, for instance, starting to show a little bit of vulnerability to what is a looming showdown between Israel, the United States and Iran. And with some of these global security issues starting to rise to the fore, international experts are anticipating the oil price rising, some exposure for companies that we see listed on the JSE, and also South Africa's general vulnerability to broader global phenomenon. Looking at the All Africa 40, which includes South Africa's JSE, reversing those trends, a positive showing at 67 points, and over in Kenya, the NSC 20 hasn't responded at all to the court report coming through from The Hague that has effectively indicted 4 senior government officials, including the Deputy Prime Minister, for war crimes, and that market seeming to price in political risk, and it rising 11 points to come in at 3,182. We've sorted out some of our technical issues in Nigeria. Let's get some more analysis on the stability and security challenges facing Nigeria with Opeyemi Agbaje, CEO at Resource Trust. Back with us, Opeyemi. I wanted to find out what the options were for the government now in dealing with Boko Haram, if indeed Boko Haram has its tentacles extended beyond Nigeria into neighboring states. Reasonably, what can authorities do?
I think the first thing government needs to do is to purge the security services in Nigeria, and especially the leadership of the police. and several of the security agencies. Beyond that, I think government needs closer cooperation with the governments of Niger, of Chad, of Somalia, of Mali, of the Sahelian countries and the countries in Middle North Africa. We need also the judiciary to begin to impose strong sentences.
Yeah. Yes, continue.
Okay, on those that have been found. Essentially, you find people are arrested and they're jailed for 3 years, or some are even granted bail, and then they run away. So we need I think the secret, the issue is not complex. Nigerian state needs to show greater commitment. And that commitment has to come right up from the president to dealing with Boko Haram and abolishing terrorism.
For Nigeria's reputation, what has this Boko Haram issue done? Because obviously Nigeria is on a steady growth path. The government's very ambitious with its investment programs, so many reforms to support the growth of this economy, but investors won't come where they don't feel secure.
You know, in April 2011, after elections, I was very optimistic about Nigeria. We had done 12 years of democracy. We had proven that we were a stable democracy, and we were ready for investment, for reforms, and for growth. There's no doubt that Boko Haram is affecting this outlook. I met a businessman yesterday who had negotiated an investment with some US investors over a 3-year period. Recently, they deferred the investment for 2 more years because of things like Boko Haram. So clearly it's affecting the investment outlook in Nigeria. I can imagine the economies of Borno State, Plateau State, Yobe State, Gombe State, Bauchi State, all of them in northern Nigeria, completely destroyed or substantially destroyed by the activities of Boko Haram. And now the prospects of even a damage to the country's territorial integrity and unity is being introduced into the equation. So Boko Haram is becoming a serious issue and can even affect negatively their economic outlook.